send all of you a follow-up email with the recorded session to watch again, share with your teammates, or if you have to drop off for some reason, don't sweat it. You'll be able to catch right back up where you left off. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. We can expect this webinar to last about 25 to 30 minutes, depending on how long the Q&A lasts at the very end. Perfect. So at this point, you all should definitely be able to see my screen, and it looks like it is projecting just fine. So again, the topic for today's webinar is how to provide your manager real-time progress updates on your work without emails. Now, I know that webinar topic is maybe a little bit longer than the typical one that we see, but it really is a challenge that a lot of people face, and it's absolutely a solution that Priority Matrix can provide for you. So, what do I see a lot of the times? I have been with Affluence for it'll be 6 years in just a couple of weeks. So, it's safe to say I've been able to talk to a lot of our first time users, and they come to me with a similar challenge, which is, I'm sending my manager a lot of emails and they're sending a lot of emails back to me. And it's really challenging to provide progress updates. And they really don't have the visibility they need to get all of those status updates and comments from me. So, similar challenge across a lot of the organizations I work with, and Priority Matrix supports those organizations in a very similar way, which is what we're going to look at today. So, Priority Matrix will essentially make your status updates simplified. And Priority Matrix is designed for the manager who needs more visibility with fewer meetings. I know that sounds just about impossible to achieve, but I think you'll be pretty happy to see the way that Priority Matrix can help you with this support. Priority Matrix is designed for the teammate who has a lot on their plate and frequently shares critical updates. And kind of in a whole, it's designed for the organization who is rooted into Office 365. I'm going to get more into the Office integrations in just a minute, but for those of you who are deeply rooted into Office, it's just kind of another little checkbox you can check off with Priority Matrix, because I know that is a big need for a lot of organizations. So the Priority Matrix approach is here to allow you to give item level progress updates at your convenience. And, I know for a lot of people, like I mentioned, that oftentimes looks like going to your email or maybe going to an Excel spreadsheet to update, a task you're working on. And that's definitely great. It's better than not providing any status updates at all. But the organized approach that Priority Matrix provides lets you kind of take these item level progress updates to an elevated level in a more organized and effective fashion. From a manager's perspective, you're going to be able to zoom in on a per user basis to see, okay, what have I delegated out to my teammates? And for this specific person, what is a status update for the priorities we're working on together? You're also going to be able to create shared tasks automatically that will notify your manager with any type of progress update that you share. So, in Priority Matrix, there's a couple different layers of visibility, whether you're just simply sharing a project or maybe you're saying, hey, here's a really important priority. I want my manager to get updates for this and notifications. I'm going to zoom in on all of this and, kind of show you this in more detail during the duration of this webinar. So kind of circling back and touching on the Office 365 integrations a little bit more. Priority Matrix integrates very closely with Microsoft Teams. You're actually able to use the entire web-based application through Microsoft Teams. We also have an Outlook 365 integration for the email management aspect, and all of this can be utilized through your mobile device as well. About 2.5 years ago, and I'm sure this can speak to a lot of us on the webinar today, many organizations adopted Microsoft Teams for the first time. And It definitely proved to be super effective for, essentially everybody who started using it. But what people needed was just a little bit more prioritization, more of a kind of an organized way to share projects and track status updates. So we took it upon ourselves to integrate PM right into Office 365 because we want to help you switch contexts less often, but have everything you need in one space. So we figured, let's just make that Microsoft Teams and help people access Priority Matrix right there. That's what we're going to be looking at today. That will be the platform we're using for the webinar today. So the next slide up is going to actually be transitioning into the live demo, but just to kind of lay the ground, just the ground foundation of what we'll actually be looking at during the live demo today. I'm going to share a little bit of just kind of a basic overview to help the first time viewers kind of understand how Priority Matrix works, what we're looking at, and what to expect. That's probably going to take the first, I would say, 2 to 3 minutes. The next portion of the webinar is going to dive into the specific views where, number one, a teammate can share status updates with their managers, and then kind of flipping the script, showing the manager the functionalities that they can rely on to really easily see their personalized daily agenda, the agenda for their teammates, those important status updates, and kind of everything that we've talked about leading up to this point. I'm going to re-highlight that in the live demo. So without further ado, let's go ahead and change screens and start taking a look at PM. Had to mute myself there because I sneezed a couple of times, but I didn't want to blow out all of your eardrums. Okay, so now that we've transitioned into actually looking at Priority Matrix through Microsoft Teams, I want to kind of point out first and foremost what's on my screen here. So on the left-hand side at the very top, you'll see that I have Priority Matrix opened, and I also have it pinned there. So I highly suggest doing this. You can actually move this guy around too. I like to have it at the top because, of course, I spend a lot of time in here, but just kind of a cool trick that actually I recently figured out about Teams. So pin it open, that'll allow PM to stay there for you. And then in the middle of my screen here, this is basically the full-fledged Priority Matrix web application integrated into Teams. So I have the My Projects tab selected. We're also going to explore one-on-one in my team later on. But for now, just for the basic intro, let's stick to the My Projects tab. I also have the 4 quadrants selected. So the reason I'm kind of pointing this out is because for the first time viewers and those of you who are following along on your side, I want you to be able to, kind of get to the screen that I'm on just for starters. All right, so in terms of using Priority Matrix as a teammate and as a manager, the idea and the goal of PM is to create one central space where you track your projects, you track your priorities, and you collaborate and have the visibility you need. So to kind of sidestep really quick, when I use the terminology project, sometimes I see people's faces light up and they're like, perfect, I'm a project manager. I definitely work on projects. On the other hand, sometimes when I say the word project, I see a lot of confusion. Some people, actually similar to how I use Priority Matrix, I don't necessarily work on a set in stone project. So I can absolutely relate to all of you who may be kind of thinking that right now, but don't worry at all, because another way of thinking of what we call, quote unquote, a project is just a place to track similar priorities. So don't get scared off by that, and just kind of roll with it for now. And I think you'll kind of start to understand what I mean by that. So again, standing in the shoes of a teammate and a manager using Priority Matrix together, you're going to create these projects, and these projects will then be shared with whoever is appropriate for this project. So you simply add project members. And this is where I really want to be super clear about kind of the level of visibility and how this plays into notifications, because it becomes really critical for the manager who needs to be getting updates and notifications for these status changes. Okay, so, and again, if you have questions, feel free to jot them down. I can answer them for you at the very end. When you look to the right-hand side, you can see project members. So here's myself, the little picture there. And then I have 3 of my teammates added as project members. So as soon as you add a project member or several members, what you're doing is you're giving full access and visibility and collaboration rights into this project. So just recently, my engineers were working on a project. They shared it with me so I could be in the loop with our new features we're working on. That allowed me to go in there, click on every single item, comment if I wanted to. It's there's no limitations as soon as you share the project with somebody, which is great because that's one of the whole concepts of Priority Matrix is to create a fully functioning collaborative space for everybody in the project. So then the next question that I typically get would be, okay, well, if I share this project with 10 people and then I continue to create new action items. So let's just say updating, we'll just say updating website SEO, just as an example. So when I add this task into my priority matrix, those 3 other people who I share this project with can absolutely see this and follow along with any changes that I make. But something I really like to highlight at this point is nobody's actually gotten a notification specifically about this item, although they can definitely see it in this project. So this is when we kind of get into the nitty-gritty, focusing on the topic of this webinar, which is how will my manager actually receive immediate notifications for these top priority items? So the key here is to just simply add anybody to this item as a follower who needs to be basically signed up for notifications for progress updates. In other words, add your manager to any priorities that they for sure need to see status updates for. So now what happens is, let's say time passes and I update the progress. I can go in here and I can say, okay, this will be due in 1 week. Let's say remind me in 3 days. Maybe I jump to the notes and I say, hey, I'm working on this, ... Maybe you create a little checklist, again, just so your manager can know the exact approach you're taking, what to expect when you're working on this task, and any resources. So any files you may need, anything under the sun that you're kind of tracking for this task, throw in the item details. So now what's happened since I've added followers to this item, they have actually now been notified that I'm making all of these changes. So again, kind of thinking in the shoes of a teammate who's working in priority matrix with their manager and other teammates as well, but for the manager who needs to see these status updates. Create the task, simply add that manager as a follower across all of your projects, all of the tasks that are relevant to them to see status updates for. So at this point, number one, we've given visibility and we've taken the step to say, hey, here's all the top priorities that, maybe you and I discussed that you need to see status updates for. So you've added them as a follower. What's great is there's a lot of visibility and a lot of communication happening, and we're definitely not in our inbox. We're not using Excel. We're still working right through Teams, which is one of the biggest goals for a lot of people. So hopefully that makes sense, setting the stage for how you can give visibility and set up those notifications so those progress updates can flow through. Let's shift gears and look at this now from the perspective of a manager who wants to see progress updates kind of readily at their convenience. So there's a couple different views that I would suggest they use. Number one, let's hop to the one-on-one view. So Priority Matrix is very special and has a lot of unique functionalities. One-on-one would be the first one that comes to mind for me. So let's pretend I'm a manager in Priority Matrix. And all of a sudden, I'm like, hey, what is the status of those priorities that one of my teammates is working on? I'm going to use demo user here for the example. The manager would be able to see under my team anybody who's using Priority Matrix with them. They can choose the user they need to check in on. And what happens is, thinking back to all of those projects, I think I had 4 showing for this demo. All across all 4 of those projects, this demo user or whoever you're, trying to check in on, you select that person and the system automatically generates that shared priority list. So going back to the idea of creating a task and adding your manager as a follower or delegating to them if you want to. But as long as you're both involved in that priority or task, it will automatically show up in this one-on-one view. So I'm a manager. I need to check in on the status of all these items or top priorities that this person is working on. Boom, it's automatically created. I can filter by deadlines, and I can very easily see the progress updates, the comments, the notes, the deadlines, any contextual details that I need about this task as a manager are right here in front of me. And again, I'm not in my email. I didn't have to schedule a meeting. I can see this all at my convenience. You can also very easily add a shared task. So again, I'm a manager and I'm looking across all these great things that my team is working on, and something comes to mind. Okay, now we need to work on this. We'll just say update invoice account number. And then we'll say, it's kind of urgent. This needs to be due in 2 days, for example. This task is automatically shared between myself and this person. I can add my item notes and I can prioritize it into the correct project. So just to really highlight this, if you remember, the way that we are going to receive status updates as a manager to an item is being a follower on it. So the fact that this view automatically adds both of us to the item is it's setting us up for success in a way that I've never seen any other platform do this, because it's added to our priority list. I'm going to receive status updates now, and I can see it very easily in this, more or less meeting agenda that's created. So that's called the one-on-one view. Please be sure to write down any questions you might have about this. The other thing that I want to focus on, again, kind of sticking in the shoes of being a manager at this point. So the alert section is going to be where you kind of get those notifications and updates on the fly. So as your teammates are working through their priority matrix, changing deadlines, giving progress updates, whatever it might be, for all those items that you've been added to, or maybe you're the owner of, you're going to see those alerts come right here. It's going to be deadlines, again, new tasks you've been added to, anything that needs your attention will pop up right here in the alerts. Click on the item for more context, and on the right-hand side, you can see, anything you need to relate it to this item. There's several ways you can clear your notifications as well, just so you can kind of start fresh if you need to. In my opinion, more importantly than the alerts, of course, those are important, but I always like to make sure I can point out agenda. So what happens in the priority matrix agenda view? This system is basically looking across, again, all of those 4 projects that we were looking at in the example. It can be 4 projects, it can be 400, however many you have. Agenda is going to say, okay, Erica, here's everything that you personally had due yesterday. Here's everything that you have due today, you have due tomorrow. It breaks down an entire week's worth of deadlines. Not only is it showing me my deadlines, but it's also showing me my upcoming meetings and any prioritized emails that we've put in here as well. So this is definitely pertinent to the individual contributor, the teammate. Anybody who's using Priority Matrix can rely on Agenda as kind of your own personal assistant, creating your to-do list for you. Shifting gears a little bit, in the top right corner, I want to show you that what we're looking at here is items I own. So in other words, my responsibilities. Shifting gears to items I follow. Now what we're doing, again, if you remember back to how I explained that if you create a task and add your manager as a follower, it's going to give them a whole lot of visibility in different spaces. And agenda would absolutely be one of them because now, again, standing in my shoes, being a manager, if let's say I'm overseeing 10 people that report up to me, and all those 10 people are creating action items and adding me as a follower to all of the ones that are super important for me to be aware of, now I can see, okay, all of those top priorities, out of all of them, here are the ones that are due today. Here are the ones that my teammates have due tomorrow, due Friday. Again, I mean, I can't emphasize enough how helpful this view is for your manager to not have to switch context, not have to send out a million emails and wait for a response. This visibility of the status updates is really right here at their fingertips at any point throughout the day. Last but definitely not least, I want to kind of show you what's called the search view. So all the views I've showed you so far, one-on-one, agenda, alerts, and these are all pretty specific to, looking for a certain set of data, basically. Search view is global. It shows you everything across all the projects that you're part of. But what you can do is you can begin to apply filters. So again, from a management perspective, it's really helpful to go to the search view, choose one specific user, and now you can see, even if you're not listed as a follower on these items, as long as you're part of these projects, that's giving you enough visibility to basically see every single thing that this person has on their plate. So again, very helpful. You can click on it and get more context on the right-hand side. Let's see. I think that kind of covers everything that I wanted to share with you all today. A quick little best practice for those of you who have chat set up inside Microsoft Teams and you plan to utilize the one-on-one view with your teammates, go ahead and add the one-on-one view as a tab to every single chat. As you can see, the system automatically remembered the last person I chose. So me personally, I have a chat with everybody on my team and I have the one-on-one view set up so I can quickly jump to it and check in on our shared priorities. If you are interested in learning more about best practices of using Priority Matrix throughout Microsoft Teams, I'm hosting a webinar on this just next week. I also have a pre-recorded one on our YouTube channel, but it's really fun. It's about 30 minutes long and it covers just so many valuable best practices for how you can actually use Priority Matrix throughout the interfaces of Microsoft Teams. There's a couple other webinars that I would also like to mention. One of them talks about allocating resources. As a manager, we have a workload management report, which makes it really easy to understand the kind of workload balance across your team. But that's just me kind of getting off topic and kind of giving a shout out to my upcoming webinars because they all kind of do tie in together. But again, hopefully this presentation was helpful to help you understand, as a user, how you can create tasks and projects and rest assured your manager can have that visibility and get those notifications that they need. You're going to be able to have fewer and more effective meetings when you're all in Priority Matrix together. And, most importantly for a lot of us, less emails, less congestion in our inbox, and a much more organized place to, communicate, share progress updates, and just kind of align priorities. So now what I want to do is I'm actually going to open this up to make sure that I can answer any questions that you all might have. Feel free to drop your questions into the chat box, or you can use one of the reactions to raise your hand, and I can actually take you off mute. I know that for a lot of us who are testing Priority Matrix, you don't really know the questions you have until you actually kind of get in there and start playing around with it. So with that being said, I'm going to send you all this follow-up email right after the webinar ends. So, feel free to respond. It's coming directly from me. So Feel free to respond with any questions that you might have now, questions you have in the future. Anything we can do to support you, just let me know. Again, that email will come from me and it will be sent directly back to me if you just respond to it.